Hello, today I will be talking about my tics journey. I think it began around, when did I make this? It was made around May or between May and June of last year, in November of last year. I would notice that when I was like at 8 years old, I had this tic where I would scrunch up my stomach a lot and it would go on for hours and hours on end. And I had no idea why that was happening. Of course, years and years and years later, I noticed some tics in high school, and then I noticed them in college, and then college is around the time where I actually did go to a specialist to see what was going on. I actually have this written down. So I made a documentation of the tics that I had. It says, tonight I'm really thinking about it, so it's more likely to happen, which is usually can trigger tics sometimes. I would write down the time that I would tic every single time. So I wrote it for 7:36 p.m., a head jerk, 7:40 p.m., another head jerk, 7:43 p.m., another head jerk. And so a head jerk that happened multiple times. After that, I completely lost track because I was doing it so much. And it says, I'll start off the journey. So so I noticed that randomly I would twitch at times. I thought it was because I was cold and went on with my life. But then I got curious and thought, well, I'm not cold though. I noticed that I had this urge to jerk my head upwards while my eyes look up at times, even when I'm not really cold. So I started doing research and stuff, and here we are. I also saw an autistic person mention tics and fidgets and stuff. Yeah, I TikTok live that said like, oh yeah, like autistic people could also have tics, and I'm like, that's interesting because I am an autistic person as well. For my tic, I feel the urge like tension before you shiver, but different because I don't shiver, I jerk. I would do a lot of research like, is this normal? Is this normal? Tics feel like this, tics feel like that, blah blah blah, this blah blah that, and I'm like, maybe I do have Tourette syndrome, but I did not want to say it fully because I don't want to say that I'm something when I'm not that something, and sometimes self-diagnosing isn't always the best decision. Sometimes it can be when you do it correctly, but it's not always the best decision. And then after that, it's just a whole bunch of tics that I noticed that I had for a very, very long time. The years of when I was 8 years old to now. After this, of course, I tried to get some help. I did go to Rutgers, so there is a place at Rutgers that does treat people with Tourette syndrome, but they don't diagnose people with Tourette syndrome, even though they did say that they did the evaluation. So they did the evaluation, but then at the end it was pointless because they were like, well, we can't diagnose you because like, we only do like medication and stuff. And I'm like, well, then why does it say that? Why does it say that you can diagnose people on the website? But anyway, yeah. 5 6 months later, afterwards, I did look at the Trust Association of America and tried to look for spaces where I could find some in New Jersey. So I did that, and lo and behold, I did actually find somebody. It was, even with the insurance, it was still about like $600, but you can pay it in payments, which was fair. I went there ticking. Of course, I tried my best to tick more when I was in front of people. So I tried to do that more and more often as time went on. Like I noticed that I had ticks, and then I would try to get more comfortable ticking around other people and even myself because sometimes I would suppress without even knowing it. I'm still on that journey. But I did have the gall to take more when I was in front of the person who was doing the evaluation. And then they said, okay, we're gonna ask you questions, and then at the end we're gonna see like where you're at, and then with the diagnosis is about 2 days later. So they said, okay, that's all. And then 2 days later they called me and said, okay, we now have come to the conclusion that yes, you have Tourette syndrome. And I felt really, really validated. Like, did my research before saying that I had Tourette syndrome. I suspected that I had Tourette syndrome for like the longest time, for about like how many months on end, or and then it just made me really happy because it was very validating. I got the papers, I got the accommodations, here I am now. I'm still suppressing sometimes, which I definitely should not be doing, but it's a really, really hard habit to get out of. It is possible, and I am ticking more and more in front of people now. People know that, oh yeah, I have Rett syndrome, all of this, blah, blah, blah. So that's mostly where I am for right now. Thank you for listening.